Hello YouTube. One thing that is always bugging me a bit in movies and computer games that take place in medivalish worlds is that when people travel, they don't seem to bring anything with them. It's not just that in many computer games you can carry around 20 great swords without problem, but people don't have any luggage at all. And that brings the question for me, what would people carry around if they were traveling in a medievalish world? Well, let's think a bit about it. First of all, based on my clothing, I seem to be a man of pretty high status in a fairly cool climate. And one of the pieces of clothing I have is also the first thing I want to talk about. This is a nice woolen cloak. It keeps you really warm. I've tried it outside in wintertime. It keeps water away from you. It's not waterproof, but from rain and stuff, it protects you and it keeps you warm even if it's wet. Also, of course, it's a woolen blanket. You can draw it atop of you when you are going to sleep. So it's really a very nice multi-purpose thing. It keeps you warm, it keeps you dry, it can be a big part of your sleeping equipment. But generally, I find that when people are going to sleep, they want to have something to sleep under and something to sleep on. And the cloak can only be half of that. I can only pull it over me. So I think one of the first things I would carry if I were going to travel back in those days would be another blanket to sleep on. So those things are so a woolen cloak and a wool blanket. Next, let's see what we can have in our belts. First of all, these little pouches are, I think, fairly common. You see in fantasy and medieval artwork, and I think they make a lot of sense for coin if you have any, and also stuff like flint and steel and kindling for making fires, maybe a whetstone for your knife, and other small items you want to keep dry and safe and you want to know where you have them. Now, this knife is based on a historical model that was for a long time known as a woman's knife, because they were found a lot in the graves of women. But later they have found them in clothes of men as well, and have come to the conclusion that they were very common utility knives for food preparation and such for both men and women. Now, I would probably also have something like a wooden spoon and a wooden cup to drink from or eat stew from, because from my understanding back in those days it was very common that you brought the things you ate with you. It was not where you went. But I didn't have any good wooden spoon or wooden cup at home right now, so you'll have to imagine them. Okay. So now we have things to sleep on and things to sleep under, and we have some small good to have stuff, and we have things to eat with. So then we come to the question of things to actually eat. I will argue strongly that I would, as far as possible, not bring food that I needed to cook while I was traveling. And the reason is, from what I understand, well, it didn't exist any aluminum back then, which is the most common material for camping cooking equipment today. And even if they had good quality steel, it would be very susceptible to corrosion if you try to cook stuff in it. So I think you would be relegated to something like cast iron. Cast iron is great for cooking things, but it's also very heavy, so if I could help it, I would not want to carry food I needed to cook. So something like this would be my staple, I think. It's a bread, fairly primitive bread I made out of barley and a little bit of wheat. It would depend on where in the world you lived, of course, what kind of flour you had access to. But a bunch of these, dried fruit or something if I had access to, dried meat, that kind of stuff is what I would bring to eat myself. Now, I was talking about sleeping earlier, and that also brings up the question of making a camp. That could include building a shelter. And to do that, it could be very useful to have something like a hatchet or a small axe of some kind to process wood to make fire, or something like this, a really big, beefy knife that you can use both as a basically small axe as well as a knife. And of course, some extra rope wouldn't hurt. Now, when it comes to weapons and armor that I think a lot of people are very interested in, the first thing I would like to point out is that if I travel with this and this, or maybe this and a small axe, as well as a walking stick of some kind, I am not unarmed, even like this. However, this is not a replica of a European longsword, it's a replica of a Chinese jian, sometimes called a Chinese longsword, but I think it serves to prove the point. This is a very big knife. This extra range is something I would really like to have in many situations if I had to defend myself. So if I had access to something like this, I would absolutely bring it with me if I was going on a journey alone. Which would also be fairly easy to do. So, like that. When it comes to armor, I can say that right there is the absolute maximum amount of armor I would bring just in case. If I knew I was going to battle, that's another story, but if it's just in case, that would be the absolute maximum. This is a gambeson. It's a padded jacket. I hope you guys can hear me. And this is a kettle helmet. It's open-faced, so I can breathe and I can see in it. And the gambeson will protect very well against many cuts and pretty well against much blunt force impact. Other kinds of armor, I don't have a huge experience wearing it, but the experience I have is that it's very heavy when you try to lift it up, especially through a bow chainmail. It doesn't feel that heavy when you wear it, so if I had to, I would wear it if I was going to carry it. I wouldn't carry it around. But it makes your back very tired after you've been carrying it a while. And if you're already walking all day, I think you would be pretty exhausted. Now, okay. I hope I didn't forget anything. These are just my own rambling thoughts, of course. If you have any other ideas, please share them. Thanks for watching the video. Peace out.